Well, good morning. You're with Michael Crosby. And yeah, I'm running for office. Well, I was trying to dig around and see what kind of material I could find to help various people understand more about what's going on. Why is it that nobody seems to be really, truly satisfied with the election process? There seems to be a lot of people that they want a lot more. And I had a lot of material in the archive that explained a lot of the progress of what was happening as to the morphing, the changes. And I included both political parties into this. And there's something that's been happening for many decades, actually, that people didn't necessarily grasp. And unfortunately, some of that fairly in depth material is unlocatable at the moment. I have some of it has been effectively stolen, destroyed at the moment. It's more than 10,000 recordings that have been effectively stolen. But I'm going to move forward with this anyhow. So, part of what's been happening in the political structure is that mass infiltrations from about 40 different countries. This is spying, and a lot of people don't understand this, but there's spies that infiltrate into political parties because they're really a great spot to infiltrate. It's a great spot to mix with people. You can show up in part-time, be a spy, so to speak. And this is something a lot of people don't understand. And politics is also manipulated by spy money from 40 different countries. So advertising and priorities can be overemphasized or, just worked to death. It's like for some reason there's a whole bunch of money coming in for advertising on certain categories, and a lot of people are tired of hearing the same old issue and the same ad again and again and again. It's not doing anything for them. In fact, what it's doing is it's wearing them out. People are getting punch drunk off of hearing all of this redundant material again and again and again. It's not being productive, by the way. And this is part of the spy plan, the negativism. Yet it's also part of the positivism of spies because they want to continue to yield insight. Modern spying is more about stealing data. It's more about getting fresh mailing list, or what we used to call as mailing list. But everybody wants the IP, the computer list, the current communication commerce list. And that's where a lot of this stuff is. Now, in my previous shows that I'd made, I explained the depth of how you have people that are spies. And we're not just talking, we're not talking just like Russia or China. We're talking about a complexity that's far different. There's a lot of 40 countries, and then you have basically independent factors. These are, you know, uh, what we would call domestic interests, but they're also worldwide, the private interest. Because the data, the information is worth money in the commerce chain. Very active, worth lots of money. So harvesting high-end quality data is really where it's at in the spy world. Now, the complexity of all of this continues as you can have basically interests that are spies that are going to do something. They're going to promote certain styles of causes as far as advertising. They'll put advertising parameters. You'll have people that have prerequisites that say, we'll give you a certain amount of money. However, we favor a game plan involving certain approaches or involving certain types of some kind of manipulation of information where it's a zero in, where you want them to focus in certain ways. So these are things that are subtly put as you have various organizations that are trying to collect money where they can run into people who will donate money if certain things are done. In other words, you have people that have preferences that will find very clever ways of wording things to say we have an interest in this or that, or I do, or whatever. So I would pay for a series of advertisements if they're done this certain way. And of course, people are like, oh, well, that's still in our benefit, but they're changing somehow in some small way the presentation methodologies. Now, this having been done will affect various advertisement avenues. And because they have a way where the spies can ID those exact ads reappearing, again, they can cross-triangulate with this information and other information to see when certain people become a reappearing common factor, IP list. So here it is. Let's say that you are an anti-war person, for instance, or whatever it is. You can be a pro, you can be, stop the hunger, whatever it is. But you're going to have the IP list being sorted in the computer where you already have active layers of interaction examining that material. This means that when somebody's bothering to look at an ad and you know that the viewing time indicates, yes, they watched this ad, you have the system automatically key other types of promotional advertising to go after these people because they're going to be interested in purchasing certain types of products. So that's when you can do surgical advertising where you're basically pursuing these people, and then this is where you have electronic doxing. And so we have here where a Democrat, Governor Newsom, said, let's resolve this in election. Wrong. That's a mistake. That one's a mistake. I have to tell the people, I have to tell Gavin and say, Governor, that's the wrong legal answer. The Constitution's clear. Candidates, some of these things, you can't attack archives. You cannot have musters from a candidate, their supporters attacking another candidate in these certain manners and not have them dealt with. There's some other items there too. Can't do that. It's unconstitutional. We also have the articles that deal with insurrection stuff. All of these items, according to the Constitution, have to be processed before the counting of delegates and or certification. The delegates can be counted but not certified, so you can interject against certification. Now, failure of the California government to do this, to rectify these certain situations, disqualifies their delegates. And they're running out of time because it's mandatory constitutionally for this to be done. And the methodologies that California is trying to state would have to be required are BS. They're totally violating the Constitution. They are required. They've already been confronted. They are required to respond. They have not done so. That information is in processing as the prescribed limit, which is there's several prescribed methods, one of which is the presidential candidate panel procedure, which is something virtually nobody ever researches and studies and understands. But that has been done. California has been introduced to extreme patience respective to the clear presence of certain evidence and information. And basically they have not responded as gentlemen to resolve it, which means that they are completely ignoring it. They're not allowed to completely ignore it, or they're in violation of the area of the Constitution that states that they did not participate in protecting the Constitution within the required time period, which means the delegates of California are going to be disqualified. from being counted, which is a mistrust to the voters. So you have to have somebody disclosing. I'm one of the few people disclosing to the voters, hi, how you doing? By the way, do you understand what I've been talking about, what I just said? Do you understand some of the other material that I've introduced publicly on X, respective to subject areas? And I'm not getting responses from people. I'm not getting voters calling me up saying, yeah, I read that area of the Constitution. There should be more activity going. Should I join together and we deal with this problem? Really not getting much of that. Really not getting activity the way it should be occurring. And the responsibility of the state to deal with this mostly huge democratic problem has not occurred. They have refused to protect archives. They have refused to protect the process of elections. They basically are direct participants in attacking archives, in attacking the camps of candidates. They're direct participants in blacklisting candidates from being on the ballot. They're direct participants in endangering the lives of candidates. They're direct participants in financial attacks against candidates. They are causing security problems, and they have responded incorrectly to information shared with them. They have not come forward to express legitimate, sane discussion of options, nor have they acknowledged the fact at an adequate level, what they've done and put forth and said, we will give you money because your financial situation was attacked. They haven't done this. They're required to do this. These are basic no-brainer items. It has to do with intent. When I'm talking about you, me, the voters, the intent of parties to cover up their criminal activity is clear. Their intent not to resolve stopping spying and attacks is blatantly clear. Their attempt to mismanage needed considerations to protect national security, that's a nightmare. That's a mess. So we have national security violated. The concept of government itself is to step up and say that in reality, only people in government are the ones that can commit crimes, not the government itself. But they haven't done this. They have really not done this. Now you have instances where Gavin said, pay these people, pay these people. Didn't happen to all of them. The claims were not processed. We have a situation involving Julie Sue, $31 billion stolen, deemed a mass fraud situation. Investigated by the Senate, a little bit. Investigated by the Secret Service. We're talking about a mind-boggling amount of money. Mind-boggling. To be able to do complete investigations, again, on $31 billion? We have candidates, like myself, been blacklisted. The Secretary of State's office was specifically notified repeatedly. They refused to take action. This is a very serious problem because under constitutional matrices, at this moment, we're talking several buildings can be completely left empty because the Constitution says these people have to be arrested and prosecuted. That's right in, bring a bunch of people in and say, look, we've tried to get you people to be reasonable sane, but you're just not having anything to do with it. You're leaving us with no choice. We're going to have to come in and arrest everybody in your office. We're going to have to arrest everyone in the whole building and sort it all out. We're going to have to seize all your recordings. And here's the bad news. Some of you will be facing death penalty charges, and the Constitution states it's mandatory. Somebody's going to have to die. And this is the situation we have right now with California. So we have attacks that have occurred. California is not financially immediately living up to obligations, providing emergency management budget assistance, so that independent investigators and independent security can be brought into being to deal with these various problems. This shows that their intent is to be at one with aiding and abetting and being diabolically opposed to the Constitution of the United States. And we have, sadly, there are too few Democrats that are standing up saying, yeah, by the way, that's a problem. The Democratic Party needs to clean house. We have these people, they need to be permanently gone. Julie Su, permanently gone, kicked out of the party. She needs to be jailed. She needs to be punished. She needs to be permanently held from ever doing damage to people's lives ever again. She's been involved in too many items. Julie Su, multiple counts of, in my view, of election rigging. Giving $31 billion out in an unlimited manner and creating an area that says, I'm going to blacklist people that are due money in California, but at the same time, I'm going to set up an express highway for people with no name, no identity, that are certifying that they are not citizens to receive money in an express manner. That is lunacy beyond comprehension. The purpose of doing that is embracing a clear understanding that she is drawing new people into the country. She's not taking into account whether or not there's going to be enough beef in the country. She's encouraging people to infiltrate illegally into the United States. And she's directly financially aiding and abetting these parties to do so. This is also embracing an understanding that she's going to be perceived as a nice democratic person, and that they should, when they become citizens or somehow become citizens, register to vote and become a Democrat and vote the Democratic way as long as it's her way. There's an embracement that there's a legitimacy to this viewpoint. We're talking about 4 major states are affected by what she's done in this way pertaining to this aforementioned context. It's very serious. Just a huge mess. We're talking a massive mess with Julie Su. Now, Shirley Weber, the Secretary of State's office, they are told what's going on. We have people that are blacklisted that are what? They're part of the election process. Petitioners. Part of the election process. You can't discriminate against them. You're talking treason. The embracement of other types of areas that these parties have participated in. The blacklisting of candidates from a ballot. The state cannot shut down an archive and a candidate's income. That's attacking the core camp. Attacking their financial existence is attacking the core camp. That's considered an act of war, as defined by the Constitution and Articles of the United States. For those of you who have missed that, you need to reread the Constitution and the Articles of the United States to understand what I just laid out on the table. because there's a big, huge area. We're in trouble. We're in big trouble. There's all these problems with political parties. I have difficulty. I can't even get through what's wrong with the Democratic Party on a single show. I could do a 2-hour show and couldn't get through it. Not a chance. There has to be major overhauling. We have people that have to go to jail. We have people that need to be facing death penalty charges immediately. This is a very serious situation because I'm now running for governor. These matters aren't resolved. As governor, I have no choice. I am going to have people arrested. These people, again, do they have any intent of meeting the timeline mark? The timeline mark that says that they must adequately cooperate so that the items can be fully resolved before the counting of delegates and certification of delegates is allowed. This is for a federal election. They have not complied. I have to stand up and say, Gavin, these people that you ordered to take care of business and pay the bill didn't do it. Your subordinates have screwed up, and you have to step in and clean up part of the mess. I have to do that now. I have to go bother the governor, who's, he's finishing up his last gubernatorial allowed days, so to speak, days. And I have to go and bother him and say, Gavin, these people screwed up big time. They have violated areas of the Constitution. It's mind-boggling. Gavin, it's mind-boggling, and you're going to be held responsible for some of this by people. I need to ask you to help clean part of this up. Get an emergency management budget thrown over to my archive, to my campaign, because these people screwed up. They involved themselves in rugging and rigging. Those are big ones. Most people know it as election rigging. Rugging's different, but it's also a form of election rigging. So I have to do that. I have to do that. So there's all of these items that haven't been resolved. We got problems with the AG's office, too much grandstanding, not addressing priorities proper, lying about material of high-end evidence that has come into their office that they didn't utilize. They violated their oath to the Constitution of the United States. They screwed up in elections. We have Democrats that lost by narrow amounts, and we have entire convoys, entire archive fleets that have been destroyed that were attacked by the state. You can't have Democrats attacking and destroying entire convoys and then wonder why you have Democratic candidates that were going to get services and cross endorsements from those mobile archive vehicles, from that activity, from those computers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And say, geez, some of these people only lost by 10,000 votes. There's no surprise here. We have people that are being discriminated against being able to build houses with their own hands. Blatantly unconstitutional. A crime against humanity, a crime against the origin of the very foundation of our country's deepest meanings and the Constitution of the United States. The list goes on. It's a big, huge mess. It's a big, huge mess that has to get sorted out. And solutionism is a long, hard thing to deal with. Because with me, I have a little bit of a system. I'm not going to just sit there and say, I'm just going to always come up with criticism. No, I have solutionism in here too.
I keep putting out my solution as on the board. I'm not really getting any takers here yet. I don't have people that can even figure out how to get my phone number. I should. It's amazing. I got 3 phones. You'd think they'd be ringing off the hook. But some people aren't clever enough to understand how to get in touch with people. What do I have? I have lines that are registered as emergency communications in the event of terrorist activity or whatnot. Natural disaster emergency. They're registered in that avenue, which means anybody in government that has a brain can figure out where they're at. Most people in business can figure out where those are at. Most people in the artistic industry can figure out what that is. Definitely anybody involved in the computer industry should know how to figure that out. It's connected to domain registration. It's another fascination. I have done extensive public communications on X. Extensive. So I've been available. I have not had what I would consider an adequate response from parties willing to discipline themselves to deal with these issues. So that's one of the beginnings of what's wrong with political parties, and I've mostly talked about the Democrat Party. We got a lot of people that are talking about Republican problems, including Republicans. It's a big area. It's a very big area. I want to thank you for your time. Michael Crosby. And yeah, I am a guy running for office. I can't concede as a presidential candidate because, why? I filed papers. There are parties in violation of the Constitution. It has to come before Congress and the Senate. But I have parties who don't want to cooperate, who are responsible for destroying the financial core of my archive, which contains classified information, by the way. So here we have, again, that's one of the reasons why California delegates are going to be seized and disqualified. So there we have that part. And yes, I'm opening up to run for governor. I'm allowed to run for 2 offices at once. That's the law. People have been doing it for decades. So yeah, I'm running for governor. I'm starting up the gubernatorial race because if we can't get what I would hope would be an adequate resolution to what legally is definition, and the immediate emergency methodologies should come in place to do things, then I have to continue litigations, and I would have to keep moving forward, but I also have to move forward with something else that's more practical at the same time, and that's becoming the governor of the state of California. Because I have a massive plan to recover California. It will work. It models very, very well. Raising the average income of 7 of 10 people in California to $140,000 to $280,000 a year. That's my plan. It's very real. It's all based on hard asset substance. It is the one that it is endorsed by our forefathers as the number one methodology we should use. And AI identifies me as the guy who has the best economic plan in history for both California and for the nation. Again, I thank you for your time. My name is Michael Crosby.